First of all, thanks to Sabu for giving me another opportunity to speak about a very important topic. It pertains to renewable energy, which we have built up to a big scale, and we are continuing to do it. And in my understanding, it is emerging as a worry for the authorities. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you the story why it is so. You know, for the last 4 or 5 years, we have been on a crusade in creating capacity of RE. I'll put renewable energy as RE, as a solution for carbon emission control. That means you build up RE, you can tackle carbon emission control. That was the thought behind it. And we have gone significantly forward to build up this capacity. Now we need to see that we can gainfully utilize it. I have prepared a PowerPoint presentation for you based on reports of Ministries of Power, Ministry of Renewable Energy, and reports of Central Electrical Authority. I'll put all this together and tell you in very simple terms how we need to take it forward and how there are solutions for individual citizens to contribute and try to help us, our country, to solve this problem. With this, I will upload my presentation. Shall I? Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm talking about sun and wind only today, even though there are many other forms of renewable energy. So let us start. Why are we talking about renewable energy is very important. Let us just remember, till 1750 AD, there was no other source of energy other than sun and wind. All this coal, diesel, petrol, etc., manganese, various other ores, all came after 1750. Now, after 270 years, we are pursuing climate-friendly policies to return back to clean energy, means no carbon emission, or green energy, which has got no environmental impact. And most of the renewables fall in this category of clean and green. Renewables by nature get replenished in quick time within a human cycle, human's lifetime. If you look at that as one time cycle, it gets replenished. It includes even nuclear, because nuclear fuel can be recycled, not renewed, but recycled. So I'm including nuclear also in RE. They have lower carbon emission, of course, which is very important. Energy cost of renewables is cheaper than that of fossil fuel when set to a certain scale. And of course, employment is much more in renewable energy than fossil fuel applications. And this has become a very important topic in discussions at global level, national level, and why we should shift over to RE and solve the climate problem. So we are going to progress this discussion that way. So let us just see. This is what India wanted or wants, electricity mix. In 2010, 84% was from coal or fossil fuel, balance from RE. In 2020, it became almost 3/4, 1/4. Our aim is in 2030, we wanted 50-50. That means 50% of our power, our energy, should come from RE. Towards this, we are committed in COP conference. It is Committee of Parties, that is the UNO meeting in 2019. Our Prime Minister himself had attended this meeting. And he says in 2030, we will achieve 4 things in 2030. First, 50% will be by RE. You understood this graph. 50% by RE, 50% fossil. 500 gigawatts of RE will be set up, on which we have gone significantly forward at this point of time. We will achieve lower carbon intensity with respect to GDP. So it's a very technical aspect, very ratio which is worked out between GDP and carbon emissions. So I will leave it at this, saying that this is also another aim of our COP. And we will reduce carbon emission by 1 billion ton. These are the 4 things which we had committed. 50% by RE, 500 gigawatts of RE to be added, carbon intensity in our emission, and reduce carbon emission by 1 million ton. 1 billion ton, I'm sorry, 1 billion. That is 1,000 million tons. So these are the list of fossil fuel and renewable, just for benefit of people who are not very familiar. Coal, petrol, diesel, natural gas, etc. will come in fossil. And renewable is solar, wind, nuclear, hydro, biomass, etc., etc. But we are discussing only solar and wind, which is the most prominent form of RE. So how do you get energy from sun and wind? Just for updating those of you who have forgotten the science. In India, wind and solar energy are complementary, because our wind is stronger in the evening and night, while solar energy is available only during daytime. So we are a very lucky country. We get daytime, we get solar energy. In the night, solar energy is not there because sun is not shining on us. But wind is picked up. So we get wind plus solar energy, say at least for about 18 to 20 hours a day. One of them will be always there. For a short period of time, both of them will be there. So we are very, very lucky because of this aspect. And we are between 37 degrees and 8 degrees latitude. Therefore, sunshine is also quite strong, very clear, very sharp. So we get more energy because we are close to equator. If we can put solar and wind energy infrastructure together, then by time as well as by location, we'll be able to optimize. These are very important aspects in infrastructure creation. Wind energy is proportional to the cube of wind speed. It will be third power of wind speed is what's indicating the wind energy. And in offshore wind platforms, obviously it needs to be higher because there the wind speed is higher. So a lot of energy infrastructure we have created, and today we are in the 4th position in the world for wind and 4th position in the world for solar. We have done significantly well in creating the capacity. Now, if you take a comparison between 2020 and 2030 or 2021 and 2030, we realize in 2021, 41% of capacity has already become RE. Only 59% is fossil. So we are coming very close to 50%. And the total installed capacity, as I have indicated there, and fossil fuel is 59% at 232 gigawatts. Balance 41% obviously is the RE. In 2030, the study reveals, it's only an estimate. In 2030, we will have 817 gigawatts with 64 RE, 64%. That means we have crossed 50%. Very good. We are crossing the target. And fossil will be at 36% naturally. But look at the value. Fossil will be 295 gigawatts. Earlier it was 232. Now it's become 295, even though it's only 36% of the overall. So fossil per se has increased. More coal is getting burned. More carbon emission. More carbon emission means We will not reduce carbon emission, we'll increase it. Of course, we are trying to reduce carbon emission by changing it to electrical vehicle, afforestation, green hydrogen, so many things. So this aspect may get reduced by those efforts, but the fact is we'll be continuing to burn coal more than 2020. So we'll just hoist this point, mark this point. We'll burn more coal in 2030 than now. Now, so the COP targets which we had, 50% will cross. Very good. One of the four, we are crossing. But the second one, where we are burning more coal and causing more carbon emission, is not helping us on another target. So we'll go forward and see how to solve this problem. So we require RE, more RE. Solar should grow by 2030 to so value. So many gigawatts should be happen next 6 years. Similarly for wind, we should grow in 6 years. 6 years means in 2024 and 2030. We should grow by 140. All this, there'll be some growth in hydro, nuclear, biomass, etc., so that we cross 500 RE by 2030, which is another target. So remember, 50% should be RE. We are going to clear it. We want to build 500 megawatts by RE. We'll clear that also. So 2 out of 4 targets are over. But one of the remaining 2 targets, there are some problems. We'll discuss that. All this data which I have given you is from a parliamentary question reply in August 24. So this is the latest information which we have. So let us see little more details about solar. Solar, earlier people used to say, make hay while the sun shines. Now we have to make energy when the sun shines. Now, 50% is light. We all have learned in science in school. Sun gives us light and heat. We have learned that. We remember that. 50% is visible light. 45% is infrared energy, that is heat. This is what sun gives you. And balance 5% ultraviolet, this, that, etc. So from the sun, when we get heat and light, which I told you is 50 and 45%, there are 2 users, very interesting. There are 2 generic users. One is nature, another is mankind. These 2 people use this energy free of charge because it's coming every day to you, no Sundays also. So, and one day's sunlight is enough for all the requirements of nature and all the requirements of mankind as understood today. So let us go a little further on that. Nature uses light for photosynthesis, by which plants grow, plants convert carbon dioxide, and then oxygen is released. All those things happen, which we have learned in school. And the infrared is used by nature for evaporation of water, which causes clouds, which causes rain, etc. So nature uses sun's light for photosynthesis and sun's heat for water vapor evaporation. In addition, nature uses it for heating up air, which leads to creating a wind, which leads to wind energy. So sun is the main primary source. Wind is the subsequent secondary source. So we use the heat and light from sun. Nature uses it without any sort of any external equipment or any infrastructure. Automatically, naturally it uses. But mankind has to use solar PV cells for converting light to electricity, light energy to electricity. While solar thermal plants are required for converting heat energy to heat liquids. There may be somebody in the audience who may not be very clear. Solar panels are 2 types. One, which give electricity from sun's light. Second, they heat up thermal energy from the sun's infrared radiation is used for heating up water, heating up some other liquid, whatever you want. So these are 2 types of energy which are available from sun, and there are 2 types of solar panels for this. But we are mostly worried about photovoltaic cells, which is for electricity, because the whole discussion is on electricity power generation. Small PV is photovoltaic, are used for street light. You have seen in street lights which work on solar lights. There's a panel on top. Emergency lights are there having a small panel. There are water pumps which have panels which work during the daytime, cooking ovens, etc. While there are farms which have large arrays of PV panels. Just remember Nedumbasheri Airport, which works only on solar power. It's got a huge farm where lots of solar arrays are set up for creating the power which is required, electricity which is required. So India's growth in solar power has been increasing like this, but we had to reach this top point in 2030, which I already told you 277 gigawatts are required. And India can have a limit is there, about 870 gigawatts only India can produce because of angle at which sun will fall, the amount of land available for solar array, and the infrastructure which is required to create this. So there's been a study done, and they say around 870 only we can make in India, but we are aiming only at 200 and 70 odd now at this point of time. In August 24, I told you 85.5 has been realized, but less than 10% only is utilized. We are not utilized the 90% of power. There is some problem. We are not able to use it. I'll tell you. We want 277 in 2030, I told you. So government has strategized the program in three ways. One, allow huge industries to set up solar farms. Big solar farms like it has been set up in Rajasthan, world's biggest farm. Now another one is coming in Gujarat, Kevda, rather than Kutch, which is going to be even bigger than Rajasthan, to set up huge solar farms so that large amount of electricity can be generated. That is one strategy. Second strategy is tell citizens to set up rooftop solar panels in your house, on your terrace, on top of the roof, you set up. The third is create a lot of solar appliances, water pumps, emergency light, street light, etc., so that sun's light you automatically convert to electricity and run these appliances. So these are three strategies which have been taken by government, and I will touch upon this as we go along. Almost 50 solar parks or solar farms have been set up in India. And I told you the biggest one which is ready now is in Rajasthan, which can produce 2.3 gigawatts. Huge area has been covered by this solar farm. And about 1 crore rooftop panels called Surya Ghar is planned to be subsidized by the government. 75,000 crores have been allocated for 1 crore rooftop panels. So every citizen who wants this facility, he'll get about 75,000 rupees from the government, and he will be able to generate the power required for his house if he is able to manage with that amount of power which will come from a small solar array. More about this, I will respond to this in the question answer session if somebody has got a question. And the third level is appliances, which I have told you. And that's become very popular in the rural side, especially emergency lights, lights at home with a battery attached to it, etc. And agricultural sector also using solar pumps. Now, a small little bit of detail. The solar panel is actually made from silica, which is from sand. From sand, silica is taken, then it is purified, then you make a ingot, and then you shape it, and then make a panel, and then you make a cell, and that cell is assembled together and put on top of your roof. But a few things which you need to understand here. First is this panel when you created, it generates only about 0.5 volts, very small level of electricity only it produces. But when you put many panels together, which you can be connected serially, parallelly, etc., then you will get more DC voltage. And it is enclosed in aluminium and covered by glass so that sunlight can go through the glass, hit this photovoltaic cells, which are normally in a rectangular fashion. Many of them are there like a grid, and they generate voltage, which goes to your inverter. And the inverter converts it to AC and feeds all to your fan, light, refrigerator, whatever you want, including AC. And if there's some extra, then you can give to electricity board. If you don't want to give to electricity board and you want to use it only for yourself, or charge the battery, which can work in the night for you. Now, to make all this, the silicon wafers have to be imported. We don't make in the country. Just remember, every silica wafer used in solar panel is imported. It's only assembled in India. Second, once the silica panels are all assembled, then there is a layer put of poly sheets which are put to make it, of course, it will be transparent, also to make it waterproof so that no moisture goes inside. Now, this is also imported. Glass was also imported all these days, but recently, one Indian company has started making the glass. Aluminium, rest of the things, inverter, batteries, connecting up, all this we can do. So we've got 2-3 things which are to be imported. And in international market, there's always competition. So we have to make sure that we get a cheap rate. In the budget last month, government has reduced the customs duty of silica, the machine required for manufacturing the panels, copper wire, poly sheets. They have reduced the customs duty. Silica is going to become cheaper. Imported items are going to become cheaper. So anybody who wants to buy a solar panel now, Amar Jyoti, just listen. Anybody who wants to buy a solar panel now, you will find after the budget, the price will come down. And if you want to take government subsidy, then there is a separate calculation for it. So Indian manufacturers are ready to support this rooftop as well as the solar farms. They can make in 1 year 64 gigawatts of solar panels, which may go up to even 100 by 2026. So we are comfortable in meeting the target, which is a part of that 500, because 500 includes solar, wind, etc. We are comfortable. But the inverter which we have been using all these days has been for the whole panel. And if one of the cells in the panel goes defective, then it creates problem for the inverter. And repairing one cell alone is not possible unless it is opened and it is bypassed. So this has get to a lot of maintenance problem of solar arrays, not only for the houses, but also even with the solar farms. A new technology has come called microinverter, with which each cell will have an inverter. And if it is not working, the software will bypass the inverter and continue with the work. So with this technology, downtime of solar panels have been largely overcome. I don't think microinverters have started coming in a commercial manner in India, but it is expected to come very soon. Someone of you who is in this field perhaps give more information on this during Q&A. Now, the challenges for solar is, I told you, imports of some items. You require land availability. If you're using rooftop, that's good only for your house. But if you want to set up a solar farm, just remember Nedumbasseri that occupies so much of ground area, so much of land area. So if you want to set up so many solar farms, lot of land will be occupied, lot of land will be required. So this is a constraint. You may not get land in such sufficient quantities. Second, you need to store the energy in some method. Now, I will spend a couple of minutes on this. Solar panels generate voltage. And if you connect a load to it, it will give you power. So if you have a solar panel in your house and all the lights are off, all the fans are off, no power is taken from solar panel. because nothing is on, nothing is connected. Moment you switch on lights and panels, it will start giving current from the solar panel. But if you have an inverter, which is giving you, which has got a battery backup, then the battery will get charged when the sun is shining. And in the night, when the sun is not there, battery will give you all the power. So you know how many batteries are required in your house. 3-4 batteries are required as inverter. So if you want to set up a solar farm, something like Renewables, how many batteries will be required? What size of batteries will be required? Store it. So storing of energy of solar panels is a problem. It requires huge infrastructure, huge capital, and it has to be safely kept in some place where it can be charged. And when sun energy is not there, it can be discharged. It can be discharged either to the consumer or to the electricity board. So this is something which you need to understand. Solar energy, storing it is a challenge. And you take power only when the voltage is developed, which is not done in the night. So you can't take power from that. You can take only from your battery. So there is a temporal variability because of daytime and night is not there. And output is uncertain. Tomorrow, if it rains, you may not get power because there's no sunshine. So this is a factor which needs to be considered. You have to store it. Storage is the issue. If you can put wind turbines and solar panels all in a big land area, then solar will give power till evening, then wind will give power from afternoon till night. So more number of hours in a day, you are getting power either from solar or from wind, and for some hours from both of them. Now let's take wind as an example. Wind can be either on land or at sea, onshore or offshore. Offshore obviously will be more expensive. But onshore, when you select, you have to make sure the power is taken from here and given to the consumer nearby or given to the electricity board, high tension wires. Accordingly, it has to be selected. You have to select a location from where you can connect to the grid very easily. Now, if you look at India's map, whatever is marked red, including what is in Leh Ladakh, means high intensity of wind energy. Wind speed is very high in these places. This is from an institute called National Institute of Wind Energy, which is in Chennai. So we need to, we are already 4th largest in the world now, as I told you earlier. We need to generate some more energy from wind, but wind energy depends on 2 aspects. One is wind speed, which I told you. Third power, cube of wind speed. Also the height of the turbine. If you keep it at 150 meters in all the turbines in India, then you will get more than 1,100 gigawatts in India. But if you reduce the height, the power comes down. And if you reduce the height further, it comes down. So normally in India, installation has been around 80 to 100 gigawatts. I'm sorry, 80 to 100 meters is what the installation has been. And offshore, of course, we haven't started so far. So if you see a windmill, the central point will be about 1.5 times the radius. So if it is 100 meters, 50, so it will be around 75 meters high from the ground, will be the center point of the turbine or the windmill. And the windy states are Gujarat, MP, Karnataka, etc., which are listed there. And as I told you, if you can put solar and wind together, it will be very good. Hybrid stations. Government gives you 100% permits, 100% FDI in this, a lot of production incentives, and a lot of tax incentives also from the grid point of view. But like in the case of solar, storing the energy is a challenge. When wind is there, electricity is generated, and somebody should connect a load to it. The house should get connected, or the factory should get connected, or Renewables airport should get connected if it has got wind farm. There'll be no wind farm in Renewables because it's a hazard for air traffic. Or if it's to a grid, Grid has to get connected. If you don't connect it, that electricity goes waste. Nobody is taking it. You have to physically connect the load. Then only current can flow and power can come. So if you don't connect a battery, you can't store the energy. Either you have to connect a consumer or a load or a battery. This is a challenge, like in case of solar. So this is just a picture to show you there is a windmill like this. Normally there are three blades for stability purposes. There's a gearbox inside which steps up the speed, and then there's a generator, there's a transformer, and the power goes to the underground cable to the design of wind turbine is not done in India. It's all abroad. But we manufacture gearbox, generator, inverter, all these things we have manufactured. But the blades, some parts of the blades are now, they have started manufacturing in Karnataka, is normally made of resin, can be made out of wood also, aluminium also. And that is production started. So import is limited to design and the blade and this hub. Rest all are manufactured in India. And as I told you, we have to connect it to a load or a grid. The biggest, which has been installed in India, biggest one, is 180 meters in dia. But normally it's about 80 to 100 meters in most of the land installations. Now, if you look at offshore, offshore is not started in India, but the tenders are out. People are going to quote for starting wind turbines off the coast of Tamil Nadu and Gujarat, which I told you earlier, they got a lot of wind energy available and they're capital intensive. And in another 2 years, we should have our first offshore wind farm starting. It is expected about 30 gigawatts will be generated from offshore, some from Tamil Nadu, some from Gujarat, and we will be able to meet the load of 500 gigawatts required in COP26 meeting. So challenges to wind are, I told you, we need to generate a lot for meeting the target, land availability, and battery should be there to store. And also, indigenous content is still not there for the design part of it, as well as for the hub, which houses the blades. And best is to integrate along with solar so that it becomes a hybrid center. Now I come to the factor. Sometime back I told you, we have installation capacity for 100 plus gigawatts in renewable energy, but we are not even taking 15% out. In solar, it was only 10%. Why is this? The capacity utilization of sun and wind, which has been studied by Central Electrical Authority, if you look at from the month of January to December, the capacity utilization factor is from 20 to 15, and then it will go to like this it is. Average is only 17%. If you use a solar panel, over a year, you can only get 17% of the capacity which you have installed. If you have installed 100 kilowatts for your factory, you can get only 17 kilowatts from it unless you have a battery to keep the power which is being generated continuously. For wind, the average is better. It's around 25%. And National Electricity Plan has conducted a detailed study on this and said they have found out some methods by which this can be improved. So there are many techniques to improve it. I will touch upon this in detail a little later. One of the methods is very interesting. When the sun is shining, when solar panel gives power, rather power gives voltage, run a pump to pump water to a reservoir, let's say 50 meters high or 100 meters high. That means you have to build a reservoir and pump the water from the river and put it there. So reservoir gets filled. And when the sun is set, you open the reservoir and produce hydroelectric energy. This is what China is doing. It's called off-river project. That means near the river, you keep a pump which will pump up water to a reservoir on top, release the water after sun is set, and all that energy is in the form of potential energy in the water. Water is at a level, it's got potential energy. It is released, and released like hydroelectric energy is produced, just like Idiki. Of course, to a smaller size, to a smaller height, and you produce that electricity. And that electricity you can use for your house, you can use for your factory, or give to the grid. This is one way it is being done. There are 6 projects installed in India. 4 are going to be added. But out of the 6 projects, only 1 is working in Bengal. Balance have got some technical problem. It's still not resolved at this point of time. This is one way of storing energy. Pump water to a higher place. It may look silly, but that's what you need to do because you're getting energy free from sun. So utilize your infrastructure to do this. Second is battery, but very expensive. And it is not so popular. You see this graph, 90% of projects in the world are using pumped water. Only 7% of the product are using battery because battery is very expensive for that capacity. Lithium-ion batteries are hugely expensive. You remember, half the cost of an electric car is the battery. Imagine batteries for storing huge power from wind as well as from solar. You will be spending so much of money in setting up a battery. So you need to look at some cheaper method. Another method which is not tried out in India is molten salt or molten sodium. With that power, they melt the salt and keep it molten by heat. And later, they're able to release that heat from the molten salt towards heating of water and creating steam because salt melts at 300 degrees centigrade. So you release that heat to create steam and run steam turbine. In US, there are a couple of plants which are doing this. And another one which is being done in Japan is using compressed air. With that unused energy, you run compressor, compress the air, store the air they are storing it in a cave, which is water airtight, and compress the air and put inside the cave and seal it. Whenever you want it, you release that air for running your generator and produce electricity. So world is looking at different ways of storing converted energy, either from wind or from solar radiation. Solar light, you convert electricity and store it somewhere, either as water pumped or battery or molten salt or compressed air. These are the techniques which are being used now world over. So in India, now I'm sorry, it's a little technical, but you have to bear with me. In India, there are some electrical engineers, they may find it interesting. We had 240 gigawatts installed in 2020. I'm talking of 2020. In this 240, which was installed as thermal power, another 127 as solar plus wind plus hydro plus nuclear, etc., all put together. So we had a mix of thermal, that is fossil, and RE. And they were in the ratio of 65 to 35. 65% thermal, 35% RE. Total was this much. But when they produced, 77% of utilization was there in thermal, in coal, in diesel, in LNG, etc. But in solar, wind, hydro, nuclear, everything put together, only 13% was available. Remaining went to waste. We could not use it due to reasons. One of them being storage was not available. Storage is not the only issue. I'll come to the next point. This was the issue in 2020. The study reveals if you have solar with storage along with it, you can get 25% capacity utilization. without storage is 17%, which I showed you the graph. For wind, will also increase from 25% to 50% if you use storage. So storage is a must. We should find methods of storing the energy when sun is set. We should find a method of using wind energy, storing wind energy when wind is stopped. It has to be made. So let us look at what studies have revealed what will happen in 2030. In 2030, we would have installed more than 500 gigawatts in RE. That is our aim. We'll achieve the aim. And the thermal also will increase from 240 to 283. But thermal will still give 69% of capacity utilization, while we would have only 30% of the capacity from RE. In spite of the fact we would have created 70 gigawatts through storage. So even after creating storage, our capacity utilization does not go up very much. Coal remains supreme. There is something more supreme than coal, I'll just tell you. But coal is around 70%. You look at this list: solar with storage, 25, wind with storage, 50, hydro, 65, biomass, 50, nuclear, 90%. So if you go more nuclear power plants, you get a higher capacity utilization. Some time back, we discussed this. We are going very slow on nuclear due to some other problem. Non-availability of the fuel which is required for uranium. So we are not able to march ahead on that front. So we have to depend upon, and hydro also a lot of issues. You can't set up dams all over the place because of various ecological issues. So we have to go to solar, we have to go to wind, but live with low utilization unless we find some technology which will enable us to store very high capacity in them. So let's go to a comparison between 2020 and 2030. I told you about that we continue to depend on coal for nearly 70% of the utilization is nearly 70% coal, and coal is one which is supporting our energy requirement. Renewable, you may have the capacity, but your utilization is only 30%. So because of this, there is one COP target. We will have 50% power from coal and 50% power from RE is not going to happen in India. Because for the power we want in India, as economy grows, RE is not able to give the 50% because of we don't have storage enough. So unless we build a lot of storage, we will never meet the target of 50-50. We may create 500 gigawatts of capacity, but we cannot utilize that capacity to get 50% from RE. That is the important issue, important takeaway for you. So RE capacity may be there, utilization will not meet the target. And we have to rely on coal. And if you rely on coal, more coal will be burned, more carbon emission. So we will not be able to reduce the emission significantly. Some emission will get reduced because of electric vehicles and green hydrogen, etc. But coal is getting burned more. So we are in a real problem as far as carbon emission control because of storage of energy. So we have to find an answer for the storage of energy from now onwards so that we can meet not only 2030 targets and further on. So that issue, that technology, that challenge, our scientists and engineers have to take up. So let me just summarize you here. What are the findings? In 2020, we had huge capacity of coal, 65%, which is reduced to 36% in 2030 because RE has become 500 kilo gigawatts plus. So we achieved the target. Create 500 gigawatts. Good. Achieved. Next, emission intensity. I'm not going into the details of this because you'll have to take the total emission and divide it by GDP and find. I think we will meet the COP target in this because the target is not all that steep. We'll be able to do it. Next point, carbon emission, as I told you, will increase from coal because coal is going to get burned more. Because of that, we may not be able to meet the target of 1 billion ton reduction in carbon emission. It may not happen. We may miss the target. So let me show you the study of this is what National Electricity Plan is saying, which was released 2023. The 928 million tons we released in 20, it will go to 1100 million tons in 2031. So carbon emission from coal is not going to reduce because I told you we require power, and power can come only from coal because we don't have storage at this point of time. Even if you create some water pump storage or some compressed air kept somewhere or some molten salt, etc., or battery we went and bought and put in, we may not be able to meet this target. So we have an issue of two COP targets which will be falling short of the target. One is 50-50 sharing RE and thermal. It will be at best 45-55 at best. Or the second one, emissions will not reduce by 1 billion ton. It may reduce by smaller amount, but 1 billion ton we cannot reduce by controlling going into RE. Because RE is only in capacity, not in power which we can use. There's a lot of gap between capacity and power which we can use. 100% capacity finally becomes 30% in utilization. It's a technological challenge, and I hope our scientists, etc., are able to find solution for this by different options which many countries are progressing. So in the end, I come to my conclusions. Oh, I'm so I'll show you something more. This is the utilization factor, which I already covered earlier. So we have to induct new technologies. There is a private power test called IndiGrid, which is studying with international agencies how to store, what are the new techniques. We have to rely, solar panels maintenance has to be improved, reliability through microinverters. Surya Ghar has to be popularized, which is very good. This is the model followed by Vietnam. In Vietnam, they went about creating solar panels almost every house. So every house had a solar panel, and he was taking very little power from the grid. And sometimes he was even giving power to the grid. So the total load on grid reduced, coal required to be burned in thermal power plants reduced, emission reduced. So we have set up a target of 1 crore, and I think it's a very good scheme. If the government can augment 1 crore to 1.5 crore, something like that by 2030, it'll be very good. Co-location, I already talked about. We should go for offshore because it's energy rich. Even though it may be capital intensive, it's energy rich because the speed of wind is high in offshore. We should expand our nuclear power. Government has given 15,000 crores in the budget, which was released last month. So we are expecting new power plants to come, but not before 2030. And whenever an old thermal plant has to be retired because it is not working efficiently, we should induct supercritical thermal power plants which work at a higher pressure, higher temperature. So that there is a saving in the emission which it will give. With this, I come to my conclusions. Renewable energy from sun and wind has become very, very prominent, very important for every country in this world. Every country. Maybe less for France, because France has got huge amount of nuclear power. So it is not so much. But every other country has to depend on sun and wind. And as I told you, we had 4 4 aims in COP, and we will be having a mix of 65. We had a mix of 65-35 in 2020, and we will add 500 gigawatts. There's no doubt about it. One target met, but we will have only 17% utilization if there's no storage. With storage, it may become 30. And wind also will increase storage from 25 to 50 if you have storage. But we are not finalized a policy on storage. Should we go the battery way? Should we go the pumped water way? Should we go for compressed air? The government has not decided. A policy has not been finalized so far. And after the policy is finalized, then you have to see how to build it, how to create it. Building small reservoirs, etc., near the rivers. It's not easy. It will take time. It will take 4 or 5 years. So we have to do a catching up very, very soon. And in case storage systems are not realized by 2030, then the target of 50 by RE and 50 by thermal power plant is not going to happen. And as I told you, at best it will be 55-45. And we need to look at carbon emission, which is going to go up because of this issue. And there is a need to only single point action, create energy storage infrastructure. First develop the policy, then create projects, implement them, and thereby we are able to meet all the targets which are set upon ourselves to achieve by 2030. Time is very less, only 6 years left, and I hope some solution is found on this. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much